Hey everyone, welcome back to the amazing world of games. You know, when game developers are creating these experiences we all love, not everything they make ends up in the final product. Sometimes things get cut for good reason. Maybe they didn't work gameplay-wise, or maybe they were just too disturbing. Today we're diving into the development vaults to uncover the top 10 creepiest cut content in gaming. This is the stuff that was actually coded, modeled, and sometimes even voiced, but never made it to your screen. Some of this will make you glad developers have second thoughts. Others? Well, you might wish you could see what could have been. Let's investigate. Starting off, we have something from a game you'd never expect to be creepy. Super Mario Sunshine. So here's the thing. Buried in the code of this bright, tropical adventure is an enemy called the Hinokuri, or fire chestnut. This thing actually appeared in the game's trailer during Space World 2001, but then vanished. When hackers eventually dug it out of the game files and brought it to life, they discovered why it got cut. This enemy is genuinely unsettling. It's got this weird, distorted design that doesn't fit Mario's world at all. We're talking about a game with happy beach vibes and cute creatures, and then there's whatever this thing is. The craziest part? The code was fully functional. They didn't just sketch this on paper. Someone actually programmed this monstrosity to work in the game. Nintendo looked at it and went, "Yeah, no, this doesn't belong in a Mario game." And honestly, good call, Nintendo. This definitely would have gave me nightmares when I was younger. Now, from one Nintendo game to another. But this one's way darker. Luigi's Mansion is already pretty spooky for a Nintendo title, right? But the beta version was apparently going to be even more psychological. See, the game was originally going to have a time limit, and if you ran out of time, you got a very special game over screen. Picture this. A bolt of lightning cracks across the screen, and there's Luigi, standing outside the mansion, completely lifeless. Not scared, not panicked, just empty. Defeated. Some people who've seen it think he might even be possessed. Think about it. This is Luigi we're talking about. Mario's brother. The lovable green plumber who's afraid of ghosts but always pushes through. And Nintendo was going to show him completely broken, stripped of hope after you failed. That's not a typical game over. That's existential horror. That would have traumatized kids back in 2001. The jarring lightning flash revealing this depressed Luigi would have been burned into young minds forever. Nintendo wisely decided to remove the timer and this disturbing screen. But it makes you wonder, what was going on in the development team's minds? Alright, Telltale's The Walking Dead was already pretty dark, but apparently it wasn't dark enough during development. Season 2 went through some massive changes during production. Episodes got renamed. Entire scenes were scrapped, and character fates were rewritten. But the most haunting cut content? An alternate ending where Clementine, the little girl we've been protecting since Season 1, dies in a blizzard, clutching baby AJ. Just let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just talked about. There's unused music in the game files that's far darker than anything in the final game. The audio alone is enough to make you feel that crushing sense of despair. Telltale was known for making players face brutal consequences for their choices, but even they decided this was too much. Killing off Clementine, the heart of the entire series, in such a bleak way? That would have shattered the fan base. Instead, we got an ending that, while still emotional and difficult, at least gave players some hope. Sometimes knowing when to show restraint is just as important as knowing how to create tragedy. So, Manhunt is already one of the most controversial and violent games ever made. Rockstar's brutality simulator pushed every boundary, but even they drew a line somewhere. Cut from the game was an entire gang called the Clowns, and yes, they were exactly what they sound like. Men dressed as clowns who would hunt you down. But here's where it gets really messed up. One of these clowns was deliberately designed to resemble John Wayne Gacy. For those who don't know, John Wayne Gacy was a real-life serial killer who performed as Pogo the Clown at children's parties before murdering at least 33 young men in the 1970s. He's one of the most notorious killers in American history. Even Rockstar, the company that made a game about being a snuff film victim forced to murder people in increasingly creative ways, looked at this and said, "That's too far." And you know what? They were absolutely right. There's a difference between fictional violence and directly invoking real-world tragedy. The clowns never made it past the concept stage, and that's probably for the best. Some things are better left in the ideas folder. BioShock Infinite's floating city of Columbia is already pretty disturbing when you dig beneath its pristine surface. The racism, the religious zealotry, the class warfare, it's all there. But it was almost much worse. In early development, Columbia wasn't just about racism. It was going to be a full-blown examination of American fascism, patriotism taken to its darkest extreme, and racial purity as just one of many prejudices the city held. The developers talked about scenes and imagery that would make the final game look tame by comparison. We're talking about content so intense that even the team creating it realized it would overshadow the actual story they wanted to tell. Ken Levine and the team made the difficult decision to scale back. Not because they were afraid of controversy, BioShock has never shied away from that, but because it was becoming oppressive to play. The game needed to be thought-provoking, not traumatizing. But here's what's interesting. You can still see traces of this darker vision in the final game. The way Columbia is structured, certain environmental storytelling elements, the underlying tensions, it's all there, just dialed back enough that players can actually process it. Sometimes the creepiest cut content isn't what was removed entirely, but what was toned down. It makes you wonder what Irrational Games was really going for in those early builds. Alright, look, I need to talk about this one personally, because Dark Souls is one of my favorite series of all time. I've spent hundreds of hours in these games. I know the lore, I've read every item description, I've watched every theory video. And this is the one piece of cut content from the series that genuinely haunts me. In the alpha version of Dark Souls 3, there's an optional boss named Oseros, the Consumed King. Now, in the final game, when you fight him, he's clearly gone completely insane. He talks to a baby named Ocelot, cradles his arms like he's holding an infant. But there's nothing there. For years, most of us assumed it was just showing his madness. He thinks he's holding his precious child, but it's a delusion. Tragic, but that's Dark Souls, right? Except, when data miners dug into the alpha build, they found something that changed everything. There was a baby, an actual visible infant model that Oseros was holding. It was there. It was real. And when you fight him, when he gets aggressive and starts his second phase, you can hear what happens to that baby. Those sounds are still in the final game. From Software removed the visual, but they intentionally kept the audio. You hear it. You know exactly what's happening, even though you can't see it anymore. Here's what gets me about this. From Software looked at what they created and realized that showing a baby being harmed was a line even they wouldn't cross. And these are the people who brought us some of the most disturbing imagery in gaming. But they didn't just delete it entirely. They made a deliberate choice to leave the implications, leave the audio, leave the horrifying context. And you know what? That's somehow more disturbing. Your imagination fills in those blanks, and it's always worse than what you can see. Every player who's fought Oseros has that moment where they realize what's happening, and it hits different for everyone. This is what I love about Dark Souls, even when it's breaking my heart. It's not just about the difficulty or the boss fights. It's about this profound tragedy in the lore. A king who sought forbidden knowledge, who became obsessed with creating a perfect heir, who literally transformed himself into a monster through his experiments with dragons. And in his madness, in his draconic rage, he unknowingly destroys the very thing he loved most. That's the kind of darkness that stays with you. That's storytelling that respects your intelligence enough to let you process the horror. From Software could have made it explicit and gratuitous, but instead they trusted us to understand the tragedy without needing to see every detail. I've beaten Oseros dozens of times across multiple playthroughs, and every single time, that fight feels different knowing what was cut. Every single time, I think about what could have been. And honestly, I think From Software made the right call, even if part of me wishes I could have experienced that original, darker vision. This is Dark Souls at its most brutal, not because of difficulty, but because of the sheer weight of its tragedy. Hey, real quick, if you've made it this far, thank you. Seriously. This is literally my first ever video on this channel, and the fact that you're still here watching me talk about creepy video game stuff in a hoodie means the world to me. I know the editing isn't perfect, but hey, at least I'm not a baby being held by Osiris, right? Could be worse. Content and quality will absolutely get better as we go. I'm learning as I make these. So if you're enjoying this dive into gaming's darkest secrets, stick around. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let's keep investigating together. All right, back to the disturbing stuff. Content warning for this one, folks. This is rough. Manhunt 2 is already an incredibly disturbing game, but hidden in the game files is unused audio that makes the released content look tame. In the finished game, there's a scene in a dungeon beneath a strip club where you witness a man being tortured. It's brutal, it's uncomfortable, but in the context of Manhunt, it's unfortunately expected. The unused audio tells a different story. The original victim was going to be a woman. You can hear the sounds of dental drill torture, screaming, the works. There's also unused audio suggesting female inmates were supposed to appear in the asylum level. Rockstar cut this, and thank God they did. There's already a huge problem with violence against women being used as shock value in media. The fact that this was even recorded is troubling, but at least someone in the development process recognized this crossed a line. This is the kind of cut content that makes you grateful for whoever in the production pipeline said, "Absolutely not." These files exist as a reminder that sometimes creative freedom needs guardrails. Silent Hill is legendary for its disturbing monster designs. The creatures in those games are manifestations of psychological trauma, guilt, and fear. They're supposed to make you uncomfortable. But did you know the first Silent Hill has 7 fully designed monster concepts that never appeared in the game? And they're all based on real animals. A butterfly with eyes and teeth on its wings, a manta ray, a frog, a monkey with a bruised and bloodied face, something resembling an ostrich made of flesh, a snake with an unusually long tongue, and what appears to be an elongated newborn chick. What makes these particularly unsettling is that they're not overtly monstrous in the same way as Pyramid Head or the lying figures. They're almost recognizable. They're animals, but wrong, distorted. That hits different than pure nightmare fuel. There's something deeply unsettling about taking familiar creatures and twisting them just enough that they trigger that uncanny valley response. Your brain recognizes what it's supposed to be, but knows something is fundamentally broken about it. Team Silent decided these didn't make the cut, possibly because they wanted to focus more on humanoid monsters that reflected the town's dark history. But man, imagine walking through Silent Hill and encountering a fleshy ostrich abomination. That would have been a different kind of nightmare. All right, we need to talk about one of the most disturbing final bosses in gaming history, and how it almost didn't exist. Earthbound's final confrontation with Gygas is legendary. The swirling red and black patterns, the incomprehensible dialogue, the unsettling fetal imagery that players swear they can see in the background, the fact that you defeat it through prayer instead of violence. It's genuinely haunting, especially for a Nintendo game. But here's what makes it even darker. Creator Shigesato Itoi has confirmed that Gygas's dialogue was inspired by a traumatic childhood experience. When Itoi was about 5 years old, he accidentally walked into a theater showing a film called The Military Policeman and the Dismembered Beauty. He witnessed a murder scene that he initially mistook for something sexual. That childhood trauma directly influenced how he wrote Gygas's dialogue. He wanted to recreate that specific feeling, the combination of not understanding what you're seeing but knowing it's wrong. The way pleasure and pain and fear all mix together into something incomprehensible. Itoi even went on record saying he spoke every line of Gygas's dialogue out loud, one syllable at a time, because he found it scarier that way. Someone else wrote it down as he dictated it. Now, contrary to popular belief, Itoi didn't directly use audio or imagery from that film. But the feeling it gave him? That's what Gygas is. It's childhood trauma weaponized into a final boss. And here's the truly unsettling part. The early designs and concepts for Gygas were even more explicit in their disturbing imagery. The version we got was actually toned down. Let that sink in. This is what happens when a creator takes their deepest psychological scars and pours them into their work. Earthbound seems quirky and fun on the surface, but that final battle is pure, distilled unease. It wasn't cut, but knowing what inspired it makes it so much more disturbing. Number 1. The legend. The myth. The creepypasta that won't die. Lavender Town Syndrome. Okay, let's set the record straight first. The mass suicides didn't happen. The hundreds of children dying? That's fiction. The beta version, with different frequencies that killed kids? Also fake. Most of what you've heard about Lavender Town is creepypasta. But, and this is important, there is some truth buried in the legend. The original Japanese version of Pokemon Red and Green did have a slightly different version of the Lavender Town theme. It contained high-frequency tones that young children could hear better than adults. Some kids reported headaches and discomfort. Not suicides, not paranoia, just headaches. Nintendo quietly adjusted the music for later releases, including all international versions. The frequency was toned down. That's it. That's the real story. But here's what makes this fascinating from a game development perspective. Why did they include those frequencies in the first place? Was it intentional to make the town feel more unsettling? Or was it just an oversight that happened to align perfectly with the creepy ghost town aesthetic? Lavender Town was designed to be uncomfortable. You've got the Pokemon Tower, a literal graveyard. You learn that Pokemon can die. You encounter the ghost of a Marowak murdered by Team Rocket. For many players, this was their first introduction to death in a Pokemon game. The music, even in the adjusted version, is deeply unsettling. Those atonal notes, that eerie melody, it's brilliant sound design. It should make you feel uneasy. So while the creepypasta is largely fabricated, the concept of Lavender Town as this place that affects people differently, that gets inside your head, that represents something darker in the Pokemon world, that's real. The cut content here isn't what was removed. It's what was adjusted just enough to avoid causing physical discomfort while maintaining that psychological unease. And that's why Lavender Town remains one of gaming's most enduring legends. Because underneath all the false stories and exaggerations, there's a kernel of truth. The developers created something so effectively creepy that people believed it could cause harm. That's both brilliant and terrifying game design. So there you have it, the top 10 creepiest cut content in gaming. From Nintendo's darkest impulses to Rockstar's line in the sand, these are the things developers created and then thought better of. Some of this stuff makes you grateful for the editing process. Other pieces make you wonder what could have been. But all of it shows that game development is messy, creative, and sometimes ventures into places that are better left unexplored. What do you think? Are there any pieces of cut content I missed? Any creepy beta versions or removed features that kept you up at night? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into gaming's dark side, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the amazing world of games, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future investigations. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, not everything that gets cut deserved to stay buried.